Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. As a small business owner or hiring manager, you know that success in 2023 all depends on the team members you surround yourself with. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people who have the skills, values, and experiences to help you achieve your goals. LinkedIn Jobs helps you quickly track qualified candidates to your open jobs with targeting tools. They go beyond resume data by using insights from your job post, company, and their 875 million member profiles to put your post in front of the most qualified candidates. Identify the qualified candidates on LinkedIn Jobs and connect with them fast and for free. LinkedIn Jobs makes it easy to screen and rate applicants based on your job qualifications all on one platform. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number one in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedInNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedInNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Hey, Danny Cunningham's back.
Hi.
Danny, we have another game to talk about. It's Cavs Bulls.
Another night, another game.
5 games in 7 nights for the Cavs. 6 straight wins in overall for them. Danny, I want to start with that. This game was a little weird. We'll get into some of the things that were weird and ultimately what was impressive in the Cavs pulling off a win. I do think, though, that it is worth really shouting out that they have traveled a bunch. They have now won 5 games in 7 days. They're undefeated since Dylan Brooks hit Donovan Mitchell below the belt last week when the Cavs beat the Grizzlies. And here we are. They look a little tired. I think you could feel that in this Bulls game, particularly coming off of their travel schedule and everything that went into the win against the Pelicans. But look, 5 wins in 7 days, 6 straight overall is a really, really impressive stretch. And when you look back at this season and when we do any retrospectives, this, to me, Danny, will be one of the highlight stretches of this year.
Yeah, I mean, it is so difficult, Chris. And I kind of think by the end of a stretch like this, it almost doesn't matter who a team is playing, because I think a team starts essentially playing against themselves, both physically and mentally. Like tonight, the Cavs won that game against the Bulls, in part because the Bulls stink. Like, that is, I think, a fair way to say it. Like, that's just not a very good team in Chicago right now. I think that's part of it. But I think that the Cavs, because they didn't get back from New Orleans until 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm sure guys didn't get into bed till 5 o'clock in the morning after they got home from the airport. The Cavs and that alone, like if this just would have been a standalone back-to-back, it would have been a difficult game. But the fact that it is the 5th game in a week for them makes it all the more difficult. So they start essentially battling with themselves mentally, because that tiredness seeps in. The legs are heavy. They're physically and just mentally drained. So to overcome that and really just absolutely destroy the will of the Bulls in the fourth quarter, I thought, despite the fact that it was not a great game. Like, this is not a game that's going to end up on the end of the season highlight package. The Cavs didn't play all that well because of a lot of the things I've already mentioned. But what they were able to do tonight and able to scratch and claw their way to a win, I thought was really impressive.
Here's what I think stands out from the win at the end of this long stretch. Number one, I thought the second half, particularly I thought the fourth quarter, they really turned it on. The Bulls only had 15 points in the fourth quarter. It felt, Danny, like the entire game had shifted. The Cavs are a team that I think were a little bit on their heels in the first half, a little bit out of their just rhythm. I thought that was maybe best illustrated by whatever Darius Garland did in the first half of this game when he had 3 points, and I thought just played very un-Darius Garland-like in how he was picking his spots and how he just was kind of not really integrated into the flow of the game. And then they just kind of put the Bulls on their heels. It's kind of, I thought, finished off when Billy Donovan gets a technical. You felt the frustration from Chicago just kind of seep into everything. And it got a little dicey late. The Cavs had to make some free throws and have a call go their way, and things kind of work out. But they were on their heels, and they just kind of gritted their teeth. They pushed back, and they won. Gritty is a cliche, but I feel like it applies here. That this was a really gritty win, and there's some tactical things we talk about too, but it starts there for me.
Yeah, and I'm with you. Like, I don't love using the word gritty to describe things, but I also don't know of a more fitting word for this game on Saturday night. Like, it was, they gritted it out. Like, that's exactly what they did. It was a game that they didn't, they did not play well in the first half. Like, they missed so many open threes. I think that if they would have played the Bulls tomorrow or Monday and had a little bit of rest and put forth like the same effort in terms of what shots they're able to create, this is a game I think they win by 25 points. Like, the Cavs were getting great looks. They couldn't make any of them. Cleveland was 1 of 17 on corner threes, Chris.
So
like,
bad.
You are not going to win games doing that very often. The fact that they were able to find a way despite that, and I do think it's worth noting, like, they played really well defensively. And even though they had heavy legs, they couldn't get shots to fall, they can rely upon their defense. And I think that's exactly what we saw, certainly at times on Saturday night.
Fourth quarter, let's just run through this, not just on the defensive side. Excuse me, not just on the defense side. Look at the offense as well. You had 12 points in the fourth from Donovan Mitchell, who looks awesome. He looks, following off the Pelicans game, he looks just as explosive as he has. Garland has 7 in the fourth. He looked as good as he did all night in that quarter. You got 4 from Mobley, 4 from Allen. And I think tactically, it was interesting to see them go to this one big and 4 guards, or 2 guards and 2 wings, however you want to kind of phrase it. In the second half, here's who played minutes in the second half in a very pared down rotation from JB Bickerstaff. Mitchell plays 22, Garland plays 21, Mobley plays 18, Allen plays 16, Okoro plays 12, LeVert plays 15, Ricky Rubio plays 9 in about 40 seconds, Jetty Osman plays 4 minutes and 18 seconds. No Lamar Stevens, who didn't play at all in this game. No Dean Wade, who played a bunch in the first half. Obviously, no Kevin Love, with where that's at right now. They really pared this back. He buckled down on what he thought would work, and it was a swerve. It was a very tactical swerve to go, we're going to space. We're going to put ball handlers on the floor. We're going to play a little smaller away from some of this stuff, and it really, really worked. And it threw I thought the Bulls a different look. The bigs kind of roamed free and did whatever they want in a lot of ways, and the guards just kind of have really good chemistry. And I think Ricky Rubio in particular, you feel him as this real big connector piece. He doesn't make a shot, in the second half. He's 0 of 5. And yet he has 4 assists, just the 1 turnover, and you feel like coming away being like, oh yeah, Ricky Rubio was like a real contributor, even though he doesn't score a single point in almost 10 minutes of play in the second half.
Well, Chris, it's really funny just even looking at the whole game, I suppose even the second half, but Karis LeVert and Ricky Rubio, neither one of them made a field goal. Karis played 15 minutes, 0 of 2, had 1 point, he made a free throw. Ricky didn't score. He was 0 of 5, 0 of 6 for the night. Cavs outscored the Bulls in the second half by 15 points with Karis LeVert on the floor, by 14 points with Ricky Rubio on the floor. And I realized that, and we talked about this when we chatted after the Pelicans game, that plus minus is not always a true indicator of what a performance was. Just like, I don't think Karis LeVert was that good or Ricky was necessarily that good, but I do think that it speaks to the fact that the Cavs were legitimately, they just gave Chicago a different look that the Bulls could not handle defensively. And on a night when the Cavs couldn't get the open shots they were generating to fall, I thought that this was a really smart move by JB Bickerstaff and his coaching staff to figure this out.
Last thing on this game that I think does just kind of stand out, Danny, that I don't know what to make of it because this game was a little bit messy. I thought Evan Mobley did a really good job defending DeMar DeRozan. I felt it didn't quite kind of isolate things in the same way. Maybe that's just a fatigue thing. But how do you? This is now maybe the 3rd time this year, 4th time this year, depending. You have to go back and look. But the 3 big ones would be the Butler against Miami, Brandon Ingram on Friday night, and then this night Evan Mobley defends DeMar DeRozan for a big chunk of this game. Where are you at on using Mobley kind of in this way, a little more on ball, a little more aggressively on some of these bigger perimeter scorers that they may come up against?
So I think that it's a smart thing that they're doing. I think we're probably at a certain point, Chris, going to see this go away. Maybe when we get into March, And certainly the last few games of the season in April, I wouldn't expect Evan Mobley to be doing this, because I think that this is what the Cavs want to do in the playoffs. I think that this is the defensive strategy they want to employ. They recognize Evan Mobley is their best defender. I like Jarrett Allen's awesome. Donovan Mitchell has been surprisingly good defensively. Isaac Okoro is fantastic on that end of the floor. But Evan Mobley is head and shoulders above all of them. So I do think that when the Cavaliers make it to the playoffs this year, and if they're in a 7-game series, say they're in the 4-5 matchup with Miami, I firmly expect Evan Mobley to be defending Jimmy Butler. If they make it to the second round against Boston, where we've seen them take on the Celtics twice this year, Evan Mobley really didn't spend a ton of time defending Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown. I would expect that to be his assignment. I think that what the Cavs have been doing with Mobley on defense over the last couple of weeks is getting him ready for what his assignments are going to look like during the playoffs. I think it's terrific practice for him. Last night with Brandon Ingram was another example. Jimmy Butler was another example. I don't know that we necessarily talked about, and I'm not speaking you and I,
Yeah.
but I don't know that it was made a big enough deal for what he did against Brandon Ingram and just this shift in defensive philosophy. Just because I think it's going to be something that's really important when the playoffs arrive.
The one I really want to see when they play Toronto in a little bit here is the Siakam one. I don't know if they'll necessarily do that, but that's the one I really want to see. The way Mobley's playing on defense right now, Siakam will present this different sort of linear physical driver that maybe Ingram doesn't, that Butler does, but he's a little bit smaller. It's like a very unique challenge. That is the one I want to see before we kind of get into playoff stuff. All right.